So Matt, we are back for another cybersecurity tech talk, uh, sponsored by Hillstone Networks. This month is Mobile World Congress, one of the biggest tech events in the world, right? Focused on kind of all things, mobile, right? It's in the name, and also the infrastructure that supports it. So, thought this week or this month rather, we would focus in on
mobile. Yeah,
on mobile.
Secure mobile. Hey, so before we get into introducing our really fun guests,
Yes.
let me throw a couple numbers at you, okay, and see if you can figure out where I'm going.
Throw them
The
away.
first one is 13,384.
Okay.
Second one is 134 billion.
134 billion.
This is like an old Carson skit. What do you think those represent?
The number of cybersecurity breaches every year for ISPs and MSPs.
Ooh, that's a good guess. That's
Is
a really good. I thought you were going to say iPhones or something. No.
Is it a right guess?
No, you're off.
All right.
So 13,384 represents the number of ISPs in the United States. 134 or 139 billion, I can't read my own writing, represents the annual revenue that these companies generate. So 13,000 ISPs in the US. You and I think of like AT&T, Verizon,
Right.
T-Mobile here in the States, right? In Europe, it's Movistar, Orange, Telefonica, Vodafone. You know, South America, we think of like Claro, Vivo, Oi, right? But there are tens of thousands of other ISPs out there that are providing the same services to consumers, small businesses, large businesses, specialized businesses that we really don't think about, and the challenges that they have in driving security, secure network, challenges they have around 5G, and really kind of differentiating from each other, right? Because there are so many of them. So we have a couple of guests from Hillstone that were nice enough to join us. And I'm going to let them tell us who they are, but let me do a quick intro, okay? First, over live wire from Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Andre Kupfer. Andre drives the sales engineering team for Brazil, and I'm thinking larger in South America as well. And from Madrid. Excellent. Hold on one second while I get your partner in here, okay? Your partner in crime. The second person is Alberto Castillo. And Alberto runs the sales engineering team in Spain, focusing on Spain and Portugal as well. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us to spend a few minutes and talking about what you're seeing out there. But let's start with who you are and what you do. We'll start with you, Andre. Who are you, Andre?
Sure. I'm Andre Kupfer. I live here in São Paulo, Brazil, work for Hillstone Networks, and I'm the head of technology for Brazil in that sense. So, 20 years of career experience in networking, some of that already in cybersecurity as well and other areas. So seen a lot. I don't have even hair to you guys can see that it's a long run so far. So that's pretty much what I am. I like the industry, and I like to talk to you guys, and actually gonna have fun today talking to you about ISPs and the challenges and opportunities we have to work with all of those people. So back to you.
Thank you. And Alberto, I'm so sorry. It's Alberto Carrillo, not Castillo. Sorry, I'm so sorry for that. You can butcher my name as much as you want, but welcome and thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you do as well.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you today. Yes, I'm Alberto Carrillo, and I'm running the business in Iberia, in Spain and Portugal for Hillstone. Yes, I've been in the technology. I think it's better not to count the years. It's been quite a lot. I've been always in small companies that has some high growth in a very short period of time. I started very close to VMware, like at the beginning of 2000. And then I've been also very close to Nutanix in the first team for Europe. And I think the visionary quadrant in Gartner is a very interesting place to be. And now here in Houston about the cybersecurity. So yes, I'm thrilling to dig a little bit how the business is running worldwide. What is the message that we have to present in the Mobile World Congress? I think it's a very important milestone here in Europe. Let's do it, man.
Well, thanks for being with us. Steve, do you want to kick off the questioning and get the conversation going?
Yeah, well, so I'm just a dumb computer guy. I don't know anything about ISPs, MSPs. Can you guys talk about, what the service provider landscape looks like in each of your regions? Is it? I mean, Matt threw out some impressive numbers around the U.S., but what's the landscape look like where you are? Maybe we'll start with you, Andre.
All right. So it's quite interesting these times. We just went through this experience of pandemics, and we've seen acceleration in all of those markets, and that changed people's life all the way around. We see as we're going to discuss a lot in Barcelona about the 5G networks. And if you see a little bit of the environment in Brazil, so I'm talking from, talking about Brazil, it's a very dispersed environment, right? So big country, all of these scenarios you can see, and hopefully half of the business, it is not within the big ones that Matthew just mentioned. So, in the beginning, like Vivo, Claro, and Oi. So half of the business pretty much is within the smaller guys, and they are everywhere in small cities, small regions, across the board. So that's quite interesting, and that changed how we see like the tax kind of implications, how Anatel, the organization that runs the controls the telecom in Brazil, how they deal with that environment. So think about this, 5G and how that could change the environment. We see now we talk a lot about edge computing, comparing to hyperscale data centers. So that thing is changing quite fast, guys. So last year we're talking about maybe a 5 billion revenue business dollars, right, across Brazil. So it's lots of things going on. Hybrid cloud, so people are accessing internet and cloud and working from home and doing lots of things around that. So consolidation trends also, if you see, so those smaller guys are being, acquired in lots of M&A kind of a situation across the country as well. So I don't know. It's lots of areas we can discuss today. It's a very nice time to be, and why not? Cybersecurity is one of the the challenge, and also players on the opportunity side as revenue stream, new revenue streams, new value-added services from the ISPs towards the consumers. So, anyways, I'll give, maybe Alberto can put some thoughts around that on top of that.
I think you cover very, very nicely the situation here in Europe and specifically in Spain and Portugal. It's quite similar. We have a few big players that has over 95% of share of all the lines, but also we have an interesting number of second tier or even long tail of ISPs. And I think in Spain could be in around 1,000 or 1,500 of these ISPs. They started in areas we have a very mountain terrain in outside the big cities around, and it is very difficult for the big players to make profit on giving services of those distant areas, and there is a niche of business that So there are people, maybe they are not looking for that. Maybe there is in a remote village, the owner of the pharmacy or the bar, they have some technical knowledge and started to have service for themselves. And then they started to give service to their neighbors and so on. And there is they end up creating a small super small ISPs. And there is an important thing that happened in the last year here in Spain that is a startup that is called now Mass Mobile. They started from the very, very beginning, very small, and they start a very intelligent movement. They have this strategic startup mindset, and they make such a big noise. And now they are placed in the top 5 or even top 3 ISPs in Spain. So all the market is shaking around, and all the people is looking for their opportunities. And now I think there is also a big opportunity for consolidation. There are several ISPs. There is one buying each other's. There is so small that maybe the big companies, they are not able to buy one by one and go through an MAA process. And so they have to put another tier or people that is buying another ISPs, and then there will be an app buying for an even bigger fish. And yeah, there is some places when there is a lot of competition, and it's very important to have a different message to be able to have a huge retention. And there is an offering and another offering, and also there is another interesting thing, and it's the cybersecurity. It's something that is growing because we are in a starting point in which there is not even a culture of cybersecurity. The people is investing in physical security, but they have open internet for all their employees, or not talking about the domestic users and so on. So there is also a huge market, and the challenge here is to convince the people that they actually have these needs. And there is an interesting number. There is the 40,000 that you mentioned before, is the number of success attacks in the small market in Spain every month.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So
This concern is 40,000 every month of successful attacks. So there is a high revenue stream for the bad guys. And I think we should take care of that. Maybe we could dig into during the conversation.
So when I think about cybersecurity as an enterprise IT guy, right, I want to keep everybody out. I want to put a wall around all of my infrastructure. But the ISPs and MSPs are a little bit different, right? By nature, they're very open. They have to be open to the world. So how do they think about cybersecurity differently than maybe a traditional IT guy, right? Because you have to protect the ISP resources, but there's also maybe an opportunity to sell cybersecurity services to their customers. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's right to the point. So it is a huge discussion now. We talk a lot with ISPs, and they start maybe saying, I'm looking for costs. So we are talking about infrastructure at this point, right? So ISP infrastructure, and they look for lower costs, and they talk about, okay, I need connectivity. So Alberto was also touching base on that, on the culture. But guess what? The ISPs as companies, they need to comply, and they need to respect things like LGBT in Brazil or GDPR in Europe. So those general protection laws, data laws, they are just across, and there's no way out, and they're gonna get huge fines if they're not complying to that. If they have leaks of data, so everything they need to go after that, right? And as you mentioned, Steve, that's also the good part of it, which is opportunities for new revenue streams, so they can, let's say, managed security service providers, MSSPs. They have a huge opportunity in front of them to offer security services on top of connectivity, simply simply saying connectivity, fiber, radio, and now 5G or whatever connectivity they can provide to the local subscribers, right? So that part of that we call CPEs, right? So the customer premise equipment and the services towards the local where the subscriber is, right? So that's a huge thing that we can go over there. But pretty much they are starting to get, culturally speaking, around that compliance and that protection mode. Because guess what? If someone gets in as a subscriber, do something that's not acceptable, let's say this, they can get caught. And who did what and where and how? So they need to provide the data to the agencies, to whatever who ask for that, to make them safe, right? And so that also something regarding the governance of data, the governance of logs, the governance of information about the subscribers. They have to be logged everywhere. And there are some implications on that because that's a huge amount of data. They need to, that's part of the business. We can go over that. But I think Alberto can also provide his thoughts.
Yes. At the end of the day, they're a business, and they have to run their business, and there is a lot of things that they have to take into consideration. They have an average revenue per user every month, and they need to target the different personas that there is in their install base. There are people that they don't care about cybersecurity at all. Maybe they need to target them with even more a teaching about the culture. You need to use a password. Maybe you need to be conscious that the threat that it is out there every time that you open a click. And some of them, they are doing an active place in doing this kind of evangelization. But in the other side, once you are charging a fee for a month, all the cost that you put on your business to run your infrastructure is less benefit from them. So they have to be very careful where they keep equipment they put that. What is the value perceived by the customer about this equipment? And they need to be very careful because all the investment in network infrastructure, when we are talking about ISP, there is a huge investment that has a very long time to recover. So the ROI is a very important thing. So it is important to take in consideration the total cost of ownership of the infrastructure that they put there. I think we are a very good position. Also, that is important to be able to for the security perspective, to give an across service. And I think we are serving that the CGNAT. We are the top leaders of CGNAT for ISPs. And we have some customers that end up with us only because the use case of the CGNAT, they could complement their investment and to get more revenue or better benefit from them, putting on top a cybersecurity option for specific target users. And the other thing is how you integrate this equipment into your infrastructure. You have a strong cybersecurity equipment or appliance, but this is not talk anything about specific or advanced networking algorithms and routing and so on. There could be a problem from the ISP. So as we have a foundation of networking, this is also a very important use case. It is not only to be able to provide a strong cybersecurity features, but also to integration ourselves into this into the infrastructure successfully. So I think it is very important also for us that. And with all of this, of course, the idea of giving single pane of glass to be able to administer the old infrastructure with some tools that has machine learning, in artificial intelligence, and so on. It gives so much power to really use the resources of the ISP people to really profitable activities, not to read the logs or giving the reports and so on. So with all of this together, I think this is the key for the success in the ISP business.
Quick question for you, Andre, is I think about, the ISP landscape and Brazil in particular. You have Sao Paulo, Brasilia, Rio, and you have, a few large cities, but you more so than Spain have a lot of those small villages. And I think you mentioned when we were talking before that, you have over 10,000 ISPs down in Brazil. And I think that's partly because you're so, it's such a large country geographically, and there are so many of these small disconnected villages. How do you find that as you go out into the more remote parts of the country, that there are specific challenges that ISPs have that, maybe Hillstone brings a unique value to, or just, they're interesting, challenges that maybe an ISP in Sao Paulo or Madrid wouldn't think of?
Yeah, it's a good point. That's about the diversification of environments that we can see around the country. So you're right. You're correct. The environments are different. So for a small region, small cities, guess what? They're getting to internet. It's a fact. They're getting to fiber. They're getting to radio. Even the rural areas, they're getting there. So they have a mobile phone on their hands. Don't get me wrong, right? So maybe they have other challenges, to live, but they will have a mobile phone in their hands across all social extracts of the society, right? And they want to have a proper accessing experience. They want to use the mobile phone for education. So maybe most likely they will not have a computer at home, but they will have the mobile phone. I'm not going to discuss the effectivity of studying at school, looking at a small screen towards a big screen. For example, in front of me here, I have a 23 inches screen, so it's a completely different situation. But to your point, the challenges are different. The cost implications for the small providers. In Brazil, we call this PPPs, which translates in Portuguese to English to small service providers, PPPs. They have almost 50% of the business in the country. So they together that whatever number of small SPs, they have a revenue stream bigger than the three big guys that you mentioned at the beginning, Vivo, Claro, and Oi, for example. So, and the applications are like that. They the costs, sometimes they need to connect the transport of data, the connectivity transport from a small area gets into let's say a point of presence in a regional area, and that regional area connects to the internet link that goes across, for example, from the north of Brazil, the undersea fiber towards the US and Europe, So that's part of the consolidation, lots of negotiation among those ISPs. So one provides connectivity to smaller ones, and bigger, and get to the biggest guys. So that's a situation that you're going to see more and more in countries like Brazil, and maybe even talking about Latin America, if you will. So it shouldn't be that different. So I think we kind of talk about it, right? So different situations, but people are getting there, and they need to get experience. And the smaller SPs need to care about security and compliance and control over what people are accessing, because they need to monitor that, analyze that traffic, and why not make some sort of a quality of service on that traffic, because they are not have the biggest links to connect that. We talk about thousands of people, even in the smaller cities, right? So that can be huge as well. It's not like 500 people. It's maybe 5,000 people in one of those areas. So anyways, yeah.
In a situation like that, and I think about Hillstone engaging an ISP that is in the north of Brazil and maybe has 5,000 customers, right? Probably don't have the budget to go buy the most expensive infrastructure and services. How do you approach a situation like that? Is it you deliver some kind of security as a service to that ISP that they can then pass on to their customers, or how's that work?
Yeah, we talk about efficiency here. So just recall a little bit what Alberto was saying. Maybe the biggest opportunity for cybersecurity and for, I would say, Houston, why not? And other players, of course, but talk about a little bit of what we interact with is CGNet. So carrier grade net. So the CGNet is here because, talk about Brazil again, half of the traffic is IPv6 at this moment. And IPv6 was created in the last century, right? Yeah. So we are not quite there yet. And if you see across the globe, it's not. Brazil is actually a little bit of the average, like 50%, a little bit more, a little bit less. So we need something that extends the usage of IPv4 ranges. So, and the answer for that is CGNet, carrier grade net, so, or net 444. So I'm not going into details about the technology there, but that's something that saves the ISPs and because of costs and because of infrastructure and because of their ability to work with the technology. So talking about professionals, cybersecurity professionals and networking professionals that would be able to run those networks. So that's where Houston can be a good player, because we provide efficiency on those equipment, a total cost of ownership, just Alberto mentioned again about it. And we can be efficient on the log collection, making sure things are stored properly. We have that governance, and gets in, gets out, efficiency, works, experience, and it's easy to use. So at the end of the day, that fits perfectly on that environment of small, even medium-sized ISPs. So that's where we're going, because we provide an answer, provide a solution to their needs on that sense. And on top of that, there is also security, right? So value-added services on security, and that's something we add on to it, because our box is a firewall. It's not just saying router or talking to the European guys. I lived in the UK for 3 years, so routers, right? So anyways, that's a different game to discuss, right? So answer your question, Matt. I think lots of points to fit and get good proposition value added to those guys.
And I have to think, if just real quickly, and Steve, you can jump in after, sorry, but I just want one quick follow on with that there. The notion of security and kind of delivering security, I have to think maybe in the small villages or small towns where, you don't have as much competition, you have a captive audience, but maybe more so in the larger cities or Madrid or Barcelona, that security capability you have, you can turn around and use to differentiate from Hillstone, differentiate yourself as an ISP versus the competition. This is something you can report out monthly to your customers, let them know what their security profile is or status and, number of attacks they had, so on and so forth. I have to think there's some story you can tell in there to help kind of, increase the value proposition of all these ISPs that are in a very competitive market right now.
Yeah, but I think that the more crowded or the biggest the city is, the more profitable the customer is, and it is more probable that one of the biggest guys is already around. So the competition at the end, it is a commodity for new people. So there are people that at home, they have 3 networks of fiber and very close to their home. So it is a matter, you cannot differentiate, it is a matter of price. So you can say that you have the best 5G network or the best fiber network or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's pricing. And there is some special actors around. There is a Romanian company that is called Digi that is landed in Spain, and it is about the price. And then there is a pricing fight. So it is very difficult for them to offer into a cybersecurity if the people doesn't know or doesn't buy this as a feature that they are willing to pay, because they are competing for that very, very, very small margins. They cannot put anything on top of that. But in the rural area, there is also a very interesting thing that it is a change in the behaviors in the to the people that is in that distant areas. The first is because after all the pandemic thing and so on, there is a lot of people working at home. So there's a lot of people that has moved from the bigger cities to the small rural areas. So these digital nomads are very knowledge aware about technology. So they know about technology, and they are able to pay a plus about that. But maybe the average price that you can charge a regular user in a rural area is lower. But for these special people, you can charge a little more if you are able to differentiate yourselves. And also during the last years, there is a lot of consumption of digital content. So there is a lower over the TV, and there is a lot of platforms, all the Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO, and all these kind of things. They are pushing a lot of pressure in their performance into the network. And also there is a lot of online gaming that it is also exists everywhere. And then you will need a very strong infrastructure. So the better for the ISPs is to mutualize. They need, for surviving, they need to associate themselves into bigger clusters of companies, so they are able to to get to higher performance machines, so they can have one machines mutualized between many people, so the total cost of networking is a lot smaller. The expensive machines, they are not expensive by themselves. They're expensive in the absolute way. But if you are talking about the cost per gigabyte, or the cost per port, of the cost per U, or the cost of everything, is the more profitable is the bigger the machine is. So if you need to hit to that target, maybe the best approach is to consolidate yourself, and it could be by association, or they will go by M&A. So maybe you are a company that have a strong infrastructure, and you start to buy people to make them more profitable. And I think there is where the real challenge is, and where the cybersecurity makes sense. And also for the router thing in Europe, the very important thing it is also there is not different words. There is a very strong networking equipment, a very strong cybersecurity equipment. But at the end of the day, if you need to put the two together, and the cybersecurity equipment is agnostic about the networking, maybe you end up having double bandwidth from the networking, because you have to go to the networking. It's very easy to understand. You go to the networking, then go up to the cybersecurity, go down again to the to the networking, go to the outside. So you have to size twice bigger the networking, and we are talking about millions of users, or hundreds of or thousands of users, and you are talking about also about a huge bandwidth, and also a very important thing for the gaming, the latency is very important. So the fewer hops, they can meter in every hop that you get in your infrastructure. So it's very important that your infrastructure, your cybersecurity equipment, it is able to talk the latest, the state of the art networking protocols. So you are saving on that also, and makes sense.
So we've talked a lot about mobile phones and consumer applications, but one of the value propositions of 5G and even carrier grade networking to some degree is from a B2B perspective, right? I can push more compute out to the edge, and the ISPs are managing that and hosting that. And even private 5G for campus area networking, right? The ISPs, at least in North America, right, are already starting to sell this. How does that impact what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, big time. So of course we're just seeing the impacts of 5G. So just talking about Brazil, we got all the state capitals already somehow with 5G deployed. And also, as you said, Steve, we also see some projects around private 5G. So the whole infrastructure about 5G is changing the way ISPs are providing their services and pushing them to invest in more technology or more infrastructure as well, if you will. Things like you have to authenticate all of those mobile phones, or if you touch base on enterprises, people need to get authenticated. They need to get identified in the network so they gain access to all of those applications. So it's a major a major evolution, if you will, on this cybersecurity aspect of that, which is control, access, and protect data, right? So yes, we see that coming. I just wanted to go back a little bit, maybe about the other discussion we had. Just came up to my mind one example that's related to those access, which is if you see Netflix, they have a program called Open Connect. So what that Open Connect kicks in. I worked with an ISP in Brazil, and they leveraged that program with Netflix, which is they host, so the ISP hosted Netflix content on their own point of presence, on their backbone, the ISP. So what that means, because we are having that experience about accessing more data, mobile phones, and even enterprise or B2C, B2B, whatever, they want to have the same experience as before. So, putting the data towards the edge, which is edge computing, makes sense. So that's one example. Just wanted to raise that example. I know it's a little bit out of context here, but I thought it was good to point that out. Yeah.
Yes. And also between the retail market and the B2B market, this is very interesting because there's different of ISPs. You has a huge amount of customers in the retail. It's the same that the mobile phone. The mobile phones is designed for retail. There is very few features for the enterprise because the market for the enterprise is so tiny when you are fighting against a huge market of retail. So it is an interesting thing how the ISPs is managing that, and we have several conversations here with ISPs in the region. And the thing I think there is a niche market that could be interesting is about the SD1. So in the past they put it, the specific networking or MPLS and this kind of things to gather. And there is a competition between the private networks that the ISP could bring into the field, building an SD1 on top of public networking. So there is two kinds of. And now there are some ISPs that is starting to offering premium services to the customers. So they are able to provide for the famous CPE, not a router, but a firewall. So they are able to segregate the traffic. For example, the public traffic for the internet could hosting from the own CPE, and the traffic for the company could be split through a tunnel. It could be a VPN in a public network, or maybe it could be done by the own infrastructure or the ISPs. And it is a huge value for the customer, because it saves in equipment. And also for if you are a retail company, for example, a shopping or I don't know, a clinic or whatever, that you have several premises all around, maybe you need to invest. But the thing is not the equipment that you have to put there, is how do you service that? You have to put, a LAN balancer and an endpoint and many things. It is very difficult to have the service on the edge, on this remote place, for the full 500 or 5,000 shops that you have all around. And this is a value that the ISPs has, because they have people local and so on. So they could have a hands-on experience into the equipment then, and they can remote manage all the equipment that is placed there. So I think there is a very interesting also niche of revenue stream for the B2B for the ISPs. So they are, some of them also, they are buying some integrators and so on. So this is a hybrid approach. But at the end of the day, they have to take into consideration that maybe of the total park of customers you have a huge customer base that is pure retail. That is when you get the 90% of the revenue. And you have to be very careful on the investment on this B2B. That is very important for the business, but for ISPs is a very tiny amount of the revenue.
So tying this all back together, we've talked kind of a wide range of topics. You both represent Hillstone, and you've been nice enough to spend 45 minutes or so with us talking about kind of the ISP space. So I'm going to give you guys each a minute each to give me you're talking to an ISP, why Hillstone? Like, in Brazil, whether it's a Claro or, a smaller regional in Madrid, whether it's, Vodafone, Movistar, or, one of the more specialized. What is the Hillstone pitch? Why should I, as an ISP, work with Hillstone as my networking and security provider? We'll start in Brazil. Go, Andre.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, so 1 minute. We are a good fit among cost and services and efficiency. So it's not about just cost. It's not about just as efficiency. It's the combination of that, because the Brazilian market, and I'll expand that to Latin as well, is something that are caring about costs, right? So that's one point. So we talk about three major markets we can touch base with ISPs. One is CGNet, so lots of cases already. People are seeing that easy to work with Houston. It's easy to manage and see what's going on if something goes wrong, and the compliance aspects of that. MSSPs, so managed security services, service providers. The thing about providing value-added services to maybe small offices and enterprises, as well as domestic subscribers. And finally, the thing about having the CPE SD1 in one major infrastructure and going back to operation. So the operation is key here for the ISP to lower their costs, operational cost, and provide the proper experience to the subscribers, either enterprise or domestic consumer.
Got it. Very good. I like it. You hit on all the hot topics too: cost, efficiency, ease of use, the MSSP angle.
Yeah.
All right. You're up, Alberto. You got a tough act to follow there.
Yeah, it is interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the market, because in many places here in Europe, we are the new kids on the block. No? So we are starting. From now, I have to say thank you for all the customers that put all the confidence on us in Europe in the 2022. We really put a high bar at the beginning of the year, and we have blast of all the expectation. We have the first X series in Europe during this last 2022. I have to say thank you for the customers. And I think that it's very interesting about how the market is. I think that there is a split, there is a very mature market in which there are many vendors that have been here for 20, 25 years, 30 years. And there is a lot of ecosystem also in place. There are partners, distributors, and so on. They are working with these vendors also for a long time. And this could be, from the outside, when you jump into, a very mature market in which there is no room for new players. No? You could think about that. But then appears Hillstone, and you see that it is split. This market has three big players that has they are the leaders of the market, but they are only three. They has a huge market in the enterprise, but they struggle to get into the mid-market to the lower. And then you have a myriad of niche players that has been there for a while also. Some of them in the past you have seen there trying to jump into this enterprise market, but it is very difficult because there is not the features, there is not price. You have to get a name, to be in these top places, and they're struggling to get to those places. And from time to time, you see there is an intent to go there, and then they have to go back, and they're still on niche. And this has been for niche for also 20 years, 25 years. So for these big players, it's very difficult to have an end-to-end vision. And for this niche player, every one of them, you have to get something and lose something in return. So if you get one thing, you miss something else. And also you have a kind of people that has a huge business in other business that is not pure cybersecurity. We are talking about Microsoft or Huawei of Cisco that is huge in some others business, and they put the cybersecurity equipment because they have a huge contract with big enterprises. And then I think that the features or the characteristic that it is the best for Hillstone is we have a huge technology. We have a technology that it could be competing against these leaders. We have a big boxes. We have a very performant machines. We have a very top of the notch networking equipment and cybersecurity features and so on. But also we are able to cover the low end, and I think it could be. It's important because I think it is part of the corporate responsibility. When you see the market, it's not the cybersecurity market; it's the bad guy market. So the threats that is in the market, there's been a lot of professionalism now. There is money. It is not about getting a virus and so on. No. Now they are getting money for the people. And as I told you, there is 40,000 attacks in the low end every month. So the bad guys, they get their money for these small attacks because they are automated and there is no needed to do a smart approach. So they have to develop a smart scripts maybe. And then they get a full stream of money. There are majorities, there are partners, there are integrators in that market. And with all these resources, they are able to build a sophisticated attacks to the utilities, the governments, the banking, the stores, the retailers, and so on that we see on the newspapers. That I think us as a vendors, we have the responsibility not to only provide the best technology for the high end. So I think all our approach in machine learning and artificial intelligence and so on helps the operation on the infrastructure. Now there is a lot of things to do in cybersecurity. The CISO is not only a firewall. You have to have NTA, you have XDR, you have to understand the behaviors. There is a lot of new attacks. But also we need to give this high-end technology to the low end, because this allows to protect also our enterprise customer. And this is not done in the market until now. So we have people that is focused in enterprise and people that is focused in the low end. And if we are not able to give this high technology to the low end and also protect the high end from the attacks or the reporting from the low end, I think as a vendors, we have to get that responsibility. And I think this is the value that we can provide to not only for our market, for cybersecurity, but also for the society, to be able to win this fight. There is no real end to the fight, but to the fight to the bad guys.
Excellent. This is a great topic, but unfortunately, we're out of time. Matt, I don't know about you. I love doing these tech talks because I always I learned something new. Right? I didn't know anything about the ISP MSP market walking into this, and I could do another hour here. So thank you, Alberto and Andre, for taking the time and educating us. We should say that Hillstone will be at Mobile World Congress. It's the week of February 27th in Barcelona. Yeah. Hillstone's going to be in North 5 Hall in booth number 5G75, and you can find details to that in the notes to this.
Thing. And they're going to have everybody from like the founder, CTO. You're going to have all your bigwigs or your heavy hitters there, right? So
it's a big show. Yeah.
To stop by and take advantage of having that collective brain trust there.
It's very close to home, so you are all welcome home.
We might take you up on that. All right.